Well, it's another Pivot three-man show Friday.
Yep.
Here in old Mount Laurel, New Jersey, in the home Steve Sable built.
Love Mount Laurel.
I think
My
this
head
is
shining a lot.
nah,
on these
man. Look,
lights.
honestly, I just think one, I love the courage of finally cutting it off. You know what I'm
It
saying?
wasn't even about that,
So
bro. I know I'm sexy with it regardless.
I don't,
you know what I'm saying?
I don't necessarily know that that's the conversation we need to have. I do know.
He can say he's sexy every episode, but I can't.
I do know this.
Y'all know
Every
I'm
time you post something and there is some sort of debate of anything about Fred, there's like 74 aunties in my comments that are like, he's so this, he's so that. I was like, guys, just because he has a deep voice, like that doesn't change the way you have to perceive him or see
All
him.
70 plus.
All 70, all aunties.
You
Don't
got
play
all
with
the
me.
aunties.
Don't play with me. All I can get from them is red velvet cake. I'm straight. Look, it wasn't so much about, like, I just love to rock my hats. You know what I'm saying? I've never been, shy about my head or whatever. I just think the zero fit me, yeah.
Did you just do the duck lips?
Nah.
Oh my God.
I ain't do no duck lips,
Freddie,
man.
You was pushing back that headline, though.
Oh, yeah, nah. My shit wasn't, like, just amazing, but I wasn't embarrassed. Your shit, like, you got dreads holding you together, but...
He do look like Jerry Rice.
You slide back there,
he look
too,
like
now.
Jaheim at that meet and greet.
Jerry with the Raiders.
Hey, that boy built like Omarion at the Jazz in the Gardens recently. Y'all seen it? Oh, my goodness.
Hold up, limitless. Niggas to me, kind pinning it. I fought the head to witness it. Get my people feeling militant. Way I'm feeling, get me up. On the mission, get me up. Knowing me, I got the key. On the vision, I can trust. Trust, limitless. Niggas to me, kind pinning it. I fought the head to witness it. Get my people feeling militant. Way I'm feeling, get me up. On the mission, get me up. Knowing me, I got the key.
This is an exciting time of the year. You know, you always get a little sad after the Super Bowl because you feel like there's not going to be anything on TV, and then March Madness hits. And then we also forget that the NFL basically runs the entire year, right? It's 365, dang near 24/7. Recently, Prime was on $1 million worth of game, and he was talking about Shedeur and Travis Hunter, saying that he expects them both to be top 4 picks, but there are places that he won't allow them to go, and they have sort of earmarked places they'd like to be. He said the name and mentioned the name, evoked the name of Eli Manning. And we remember what Archie, his father, did in sort of maneuvering and manipulating the draft to get him to New York instead of San Diego. What do you think of Deion's comments?
I think first and foremost, Deion's a father, right? And like all parents, he just wants the best for his boys. The comments are the comments. They're very, depends on who you ask, I guess. I don't have a problem with the comments. I understand it. Him wanting the best for his sons, him understanding the nature of the NFL, the business of the NFL. He's been around the block. He knows the execs, the people inside the building. I think, if anything, the comments might be a bit premature because they still got to go and play. You got injuries that happen in football. They got to get out there and perform. And as long as you play well, then you maintain the leverage, right? So having made those comments, that would be totally fine. But I think the whole entire process is tedious. It has to be the perfect alignment of teams. Most parents would just be happy seeing their kids drafted. But again, Deion, he's been through it. He wants to set them up for success straight out the gate. And it's a year away. So seeing how the draft order stacks up, depending on what team's there, he said, look, I know what cities aren't gonna happen, and we don't know that. I just think LeVar Ball, he went out there and he spoke heavily for his boys. Look, I just want the best for my boys. At the end of the day, is all he was saying. When Archie did it, Archie said, look, I just want the best for my son. And that opportunity presented itself. They were able to talk to the execs and make it happen. And I think Deion, he has enough people inside the buildings where if they had to make those moves, he's the one person for sure that can potentially make it happen if all aligns properly.
And like Freddie said, they got another year to play. And to make those decisions, you got to be like that.
Yeah.
You got to be real to be able to say no, yes, no. And you talk about the names we brought up. They were real. They were the top people. I think Deion has the cachet to say it. I think it puts a lot of pressure on young boys. But you controlled your career, right? Where you wanted to go. When you left Washington, you decided to stay in Jacksonville all those times, signing those contracts. Why do we always think the young guys need to just be okay wherever it happens? You might
You're
miss
saying from a draft standpoint.
From a draft standpoint, so you can control your career at your second contract, third contract. Why do we just fall into place with what the draft's been since the start of football? And that's what these guys are changing. We talk about it all the time. These young boys are changing. These people are changing. NIL stuff is changing them. So why can't they control it up front? Now, if you go from the second pick and say, I don't want to play in Detroit, and you go 4, you're going to lose money. So everybody wants to maximize their money. But if you can control it, if you can control your career from the onset and you that dude, be that dude. I love the confidence and the cockiness that Deion's putting in him. And you say Shedeur is his real son. But we know Deion, he takes all them kids on his roster as his kids, and he wants the best for all of them.
He coaches that way. He leads that way.
The other part of it is, too, though, when we mentioned Eli, they had the right dance partners. Eli's draft had a Phillip Rivers. So San Diego, who was looking for a quarterback and initially had the first pick, had a dance partner that they could work with in New York, and you still had Phillip Rivers as your quarterback. When Deion says that, even though at this point, how do you think the teams will view that? And also, how much control does he really have?
He doesn't have control, per se. You know, some teams don't want to hear it. You know, much like Marvin Harrison Jr. and the decision he's making by not, working out pro day. At the end of the day, teams don't want to see or hear those things. But I believe Deion, being Deion, he's good at speaking things into existence somehow. I don't know if he's a prophet. I don't know. It's crazy, but he's always been faith-filled. What he says a lot of times happens, other than they didn't win a year ago. But I believe they will win soon. It'll be a tough one, man. I don't know, but I don't think teams are too excited to hear that.
Teams don't care what Deion says. Teams do not care about. Bro, they are trying to find the best player to make their team work out, make their team better. That's their job. They'll lose their job if they don't start winning. If a GM says, Deion told me to do this, he's going to lose his job. So that's the thing. Deion has protection for the kids. He's speaking for the kids. Shedeur and Travis come out and say, oh, no, Dad or Coach Prime, he really loves us and all. They don't have to say nothing because Deion's going to be at the forefront, and that's that protection. Almost like an agent's supposed to protect. Yeah. Deion is a large personality, but that's that protection between this billion-dollar business, these billion-dollar organizations, and these young kids. They still kids. So however they feel, Deion can now be the voice of them. And if it comes back to them, they can just say, Coach Prime loves us. He wants the best for us.
Prime is truly loved, and also he's earned and he's entitled to voice his opinion based on what he's been and what he was as a player, who he is as a coach and as a father. And we saw it with Marvin Harrison. When Marvin Harrison Jr. didn't work out, it kind of piqued my interest. And then I listened to Marvin Harrison Sr. speak on it, and he said, we want to prepare for the 2024 season as if we were already pros. And I was like, that actually makes sense. And it probably makes sense to me because one of the greatest wide receivers of all time is saying it. But he also has a son that when you turn on the film, you look at Marvin Harrison Jr. and he's one of them ones. So he has the ability to do that. Not everybody does. There's rumblings about some things that Caleb Williams wants and doesn't want. Rumblings about Jaden Daniels and where he may prefer to play. This is starting to be a different generation of young men. But like we talked about with Arch Manning and the game, different goals, different perspectives, different lives that you've had, and as you've grown, different things that you want. It's going to be the same for Shedeur. Travis Hunter has sort of been fostered into that family with Deion and Prime in the way that he's taking care of them.
As the game changed, we talked about the rule changes. So as the football game is actually changing, the kids are going to change too. The process of this old process is always this way. That could change too. The game, everything evolves. So the game evolves, the recruiting process can evolve, the draft process can evolve, everything evolves.
Well, I think the other piece of things evolving, though, is teams have to evolve. When you look at the players, you take the comparison of Marvin Harrison Jr. to what Malik Neighbors did at LSU this week. He goes out, he runs 4.35. He's clearly wide receiver number 2. Some teams have him as wide receiver number 1. He jumps 42. He does 15 on the bench. He broad jumps 10-9, has an excellent route running session with Jaden Daniels. And every time he does it, he's competing, right? He's high-fiving his teammates. He's screaming to the crowd. He's getting hyped. That sort of competitiveness makes you say, golly, I want that on my team.
Yeah.
How do they juxtapose that to Marvin Harrison Jr. saying, I'm more focused on the season, watch my film, right? I think where he's drafted will say whether or not other players decide to make this decision. But with the Deion thing, I think, one, you do put a ton of pressure on Shedeur and Travis to be exactly what you believe them to be. You put a pressure on Shedeur Sanders that if you're going to manipulate the draft, he better be QB1. And he better be QB1 by a long shot, the way that Joe Burrow was, the way that Trevor Lawrence was, right? The way that Caleb Williams sort of is this year. And the other piece of it is, too, if anybody on the outside is pushing back on Deion, where was the pushback with Archie Manning? Where was the outrage with Archie Manning? You should allow Deion to move and maneuver as people who have earned the cachet that he have earned, and in the way that they decide to move. And my last thing is this, and this could be far off. It's a year away. Shedeur Sanders has to be who they believe Shedeur Sanders could be. There's a quarterback that plays for the Dallas Cowboys who is going on the last year of his contract, scheduled to earn $50+ million. His cap hit is up higher than some teams' top 3 players, right? That quarterback will be free to test free agency after the season. That quarterback probably won't win a Super Bowl. If I'm Deion Sanders and I do believe I have the power to manipulate the draft, why wouldn't I want Shedeur Sanders to go to a team I won the Super Bowl with? Why wouldn't I say to myself, if I want my son to be the biggest star in the world, and I believe he has the talent to do so, why wouldn't he play for a place that could make a star of anybody who plays that position? Go to Jerry World, become a Dallas Cowboy, make a boatload of money on the field, even more off the field, and forever be a legend in a place that your dad also continued to make himself one. If I'm Deion, I'm looking at Dak Prescott's situation. I'm thinking about my relationship with Jerry Jones and the Cowboys ownership. This is where my son grew up. What better place to put your son than the place that's possibly going to lose their franchise quarterback?
In theory, it sounds good. In fantasy world, it sounds even better. I think Dallas hadn't been great. We know they get right there with playoffs, just before the playoffs, and they're going to find themselves picking around the 20 and back or something like that. Deion said his son is good enough to go 4.
I have a question. What players have Dallas added this year?
And that's another thing.
How many starters has Dallas lost?
Are you getting to the fact that they will give up the entire draft to move up if they're not already up there?
So my question is,
you think they're going to already be there because they didn't make any offseason moves? You're pretty good, boy.
But I see to that point, I understand the relationship. I understand Jerry. I understand him and Deion. They cool. Deion's one of the best players ever. Would the Dallas Cowboys listen to Deion? Just like we said, the teams don't care about what Deion says. Would the Dallas Cowboys trade things away, move around if they have to go get Shedeur for the purpose of what you're saying?
It ain't listening to Deion. It's they may be in the market for a quarterback in the next draft. Shedeur Sanders very well could be QB1, QB2, and the Dallas Cowboys could be in a place where maneuvering to get him isn't as difficult as we may think it would be. They may not be a playoff team. They may not be coming off of winning the NFC East. No, I think Dak is going to play well. But think about a Kirk Cousins. Dak's going to have plenty of suitors if he gets into free agency. So if this team is sitting in the draft, waiting for a quarterback, wanting a quarterback, you have a Deion Sanders that says, I have picked certain places I want my son to play. I know this. If I live in a place, it's good enough for my son to play there. Oh, by the way, it's the most profitable, right? And the most expensive. It's the organization that's worth the most of any sports organization in the world. And one thing the Sanders folks and family has never been scared of is the spotlight.
Yeah.
Actually, they crave it. They want it. They revel in it. They actually excel in it. And so, if you want to move the pieces around and you want to put a square piece in a square hole, I think Dallas is the
You might be onto something. Because with Jerry, it's about the fans. It's about putting tickets, selling tickets, putting seats in the stadium. You might be onto something, RC. We'll see.
You know who else is putting people in the seats? The mother-freaking women's NCAA tournament.
Yes, they
Bro,
are.
Caitlin, Juju,
Yeah.
Paige, Angel, Dawn Staley, and everybody on their team.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right? Hidalgo from Notre Dame, Coach Ivy. I mean, the women's NCAA tournament is as exciting as it's ever been.
Yep.
The men's NCAA tournament, I forget sometimes it's going on.
That boy from Kentucky's good.
Dillingham. He's also home.
The big white guy from Duke is good. That's all I know him as. But I know
that's-
Juju Watkins. I know Caitlin Clark.
Right.
I know those girls, and they are ballers.
Yeah.
That's exactly it, man. You have to have that star power. And I think, a credit to social media, a credit to NIL. Go back to LSU, Iowa, right? We were at a situation where we had a Caitlin Clark everybody wanted to see Caitlin get out there and shine. And then we had LSU, and people are we posted a clip last week, Monday Motivation, on the Pivots page with Angel, speaking.
We've never had one have that much interaction.
Listen, and I was gonna almost ask you guys to put it on the Clips channel because of the interaction I was seeing in the comments and the hate, though. It came with so much hate. But when you go back and you look at the game, there has to be a hero and there has to be a villain. And that's how you get these classics, right? And that's what it was at Iowa LSU a year ago. You had a hero, or at least you wanted people to see that, and then you had the villain. People disliked Angel, and you came out to their rescue, and then we had him on the show. So just looking at that, I believe it started there from a popularity standpoint. They have tremendous following on social media and the NIL deals, and it's about engagement. And I think because of the fans being aware of who these girls are, and all of these girls are superstars, and they're all right in their own right. And you throw in a freshman phenom like a Juju Watkins, and she's from the gate. She's been out there. She's been balling. All of the hype that's followed, it's all there. And she's in California. La La Land. So all of this marketability that follows these girls, it's just increased the ratings of the game. In the men's game, who's the most popular player in NCAA men's sport, basketball?
It's because it's the old school model with the women's game. Coming to, like, Juju's gonna be there. Juju Watkins is gonna be there. She's not leaving for the WNBA early.
You get to hate her like you hated Christian Laettner.
You can hate, I was gonna say the Christian
Bingo.
Laettner situation. You see what I'm
Bingo.
saying? Hate or love, but you're gonna find it. Like you're talking about, well, we just did the wrestlers with the heel and the baby face. The storyline of it, where those girls, where Caitlin came up, Juju's there, they coming up, and you fall in love with them. You talk about Gino Auriemma. Like, that's what you used to talk about, is you all talk about the coach. Oh, he's a great coach. No, now you have stars. But in the men's game, when they're good, they leave too early.
I want you to finish, because I think this is a good point. That's a great point you made, though. When it was the women's games, remember, it was Pat Summitt versus Gino Auriemma.
Yeah.
Even though those teams had the Candace Parkers, the Shamika Holsclaws, the Tamika Catchings, the Tarasis, the Maya Moores, all of these young ladies that could really hoop, but it was about the coaches.
Yes, and now we love the players. We buying jerseys, but the ladies are gonna stay because of the pay gap. Because there's no reason to go to the WNBA early. Angel Reese made, what was it, $3-4 million this year? Come on, man. There's not women making $3-4 million in the WNBA. It's the old school model of how it used to be. You attach yourself to a player, a team, they come up through the ranks, they keep balling, and you just continue to fall in love with them. If you look at the NBA draft this year, there's like 3 guys in the top 5 from France, Turkey, things like that. Like, these guys, and to be honest, I don't know if it's no ballers on the boys' side right now.
Yeah, Adam Silver spoke about his disappointment in the development of American basketball players. So you're right about that to where like Wemby was the guy last year.
And just look, and the international game. So we can't, and then there's the ball. What was it? I'm out of here. LaMelo. What'd he go overseas? He didn't want to go to college. I'm not going to college. I'm hitting it. Ben Simmons. You saw the documentary. He was at LSU. Like, why am I in college? I need to go be playing with the big boys because I'm that good. That's their mind frame where the females, they're still on that old school model. And I think that's why when you get a monster like a Juju or a Caitlin, that's why you fall in love with them, because you can watch them develop, grow, and become All-Americans year after year after year.
Yeah, I think the women's game has produced stars. Now, when you think about, there's not a ton of movement at the coaching level. Dawn Staley, she's going to be at South Carolina. Kim Mulkey leaving Baylor to come to LSU is just because that's where she's from. And the opportunity to be at a university that's truly going to support the women's game in a different way. Gino Auriemma has been at UConn since forever, right? You think about Stanford's head coach, Coach Ivey. So all of these coaches are mainstays, but it's also been the emphasis on women's sports. Even the WNBA is pushed, but I believe the genesis of this is last year's NCAA tournament. 4 years ago, the women couldn't even use March Madness. They weren't even thought of highly enough to be a part of what they've earned. Only the men could use it. Now, if you cut the men off of TV and put them on a streaming network where we couldn't see them, we wouldn't beg for it either. But you're going to want to see Caitlin Clark. You're going to want to see the South Carolina girls, the LSU girls. You're going to want to see Notre Dame. You want to see Stanford. You want to see the Audie Crooks out at Iowa State. Like, you want to see all these players play. But here is my thought on it. This is because the women's game needed a hero or anti-hero. The men's game has always had it. They've had the Larry Birds versus the Magic Johnsons. You've had the Luell Sanders, you've had the Bill Waltons, you've had the Christian Laettners, you've had the J.J. Redicks that people hate, you had the UNLV, the Fab Five. There were all of these things you could grab onto. Women's never had that. And no matter what we say, we understand who has, for the recent years, dominated American basketball. It's been African Americans. Yep. Now you get this down-home young white woman from Iowa with a team that is mostly white, that is leading them up against all of these big, bad, athletic, talented Power 5 programs. She becomes America's hero. And then now who comes along? The biggest and the baddest and the most dominant, South Carolina, right? So you had this faction of people that wanted to continue to see that hero go, wanted to see that hero continue to beat the odds, fight through the adversity. And she beat South Carolina. And I said she because it was her, right? And then now you're facing this brash, new, upstart LSU, Angel Reese. They got a rapper on the team, right? Everything about this team is totally different from this team. Everything about the way this team is viewed, which could be the same action of this team, is totally different, right? And then you have the epic matchup that ends with Angel Reese and the Can't See Me. And now it starts this whole thing where people want to know these humans. Yep. And what do, though? They backdoor that with more excellent play. And the bottom line, the fundamentals in which these young ladies play is different in what especially American hoopers play. It's more fun. They have more energy. They're more tied in. The world cares more about what they do, and they give it back to you. And not only do they give it back to you, but when they have opportunities to speak, I love that Caitlin Clark, no matter how many times they tried to make her play the victim last year, refused to do it. Yeah. I love that Angel Reese continues to be herself. I love that Dawn Staley can grab a mic like a Greg Popovich or like some of those big-time coaches we've seen and captivate an arena. This junk is different. So much so, Freddie T and Chan, that now Ice Cube is like, I'm not finna go after these former players. I'm not finna go after these guys who used to be in the league or who no longer can play. Caitlin Clark, I'll give you $5 million to come. Ooh. And there was some pushback on that by other people, but Chan, I think he's right.
She'll move the needle.
Yeah.
Ice Cube ain't dumb. She would make more money for him than that $5 million he's gonna give her. And that is impressive that he even approached it. For Caitlin, though, I don't know if that's the right direction for her career of basketball, where she wants to be mentioned in the Tarasis and the Candace Parkers. But the point when I saw Ice Cube offer that, that's when it clicks to you that this is bigger than college basketball. She is a institution of herself, and that's what we didn't have. Even with the Parkers and the Rossies and all those Maya Moores and those great female players in the past, she moves the needle on every platform. And I think it does have to do with race. But I think it has to do with old school versus new school. The talking trash, the doing the face, all of that. You have to have the old people that say this is a beautiful art of basketball. And then you have people saying, no, I'm about to go down here and embarrass you in this paint. Like, come on, hey, give me the ball. Let's go. And that's why I think the female game is so impressive right now because, and the coaches want it. Dawn Staley, we had Dawn on the show. Dawn's a dog. Kim, LSU, she came, I love, they were playing the girl by push down. They got in a fight. They were playing and they pushed. And Kim came out and was like, I wish you would have pushed Angel like that.
I think Kim was foolish for saying that.
Yeah.
I think that embodies something. Though.
I think Kim Mulkey saying, I wish she would have pushed Angel Reese is to in some way imply that Angel Reese is some sort of goon. That
Not
Angel,
goon.
No.
Angel
I'm with RC
Angel
on this
Reese is some sort of fighter. Angel Reese is some sort of enforcer. And it also puts Angel Reese in a difficult spot to where now people are looking at her to say, during this altercation, what are you doing? Right? And you got people making videos and making jokes that Angel Reese went to sit down. And now Angel Reese has to explain what I was doing during the fight. I had just hurt my ankle, so I went to the bench. We don't need our women. We don't need our women to be weaponized physically. And so, like, I'm an LSU Tiger. I love and respect what Kim Mulkey has done for the program. But of things she said at our school, it is one of the dumbest that she said. It is in no way protecting your player. If you wanted her to push somebody that was about that action, you should have said, I wish she would have pushed me.
Yeah.
That is not who Angel Reese has shown herself to be. And I also feel that's not the way that she should be pushed to be perceived. And so I hated it. I'm just going to be straight up.
I didn't think I take it like this. She's a goon. I'm saying you gonna go push a guard? No. Go push my big man. If you wanna do this physical, get mad, go push my big man. I loved it, and I think it's because it embodies what she wants her team to be.
Channing.
It embodies what she wants her team to be.
Bottom line, it's basketball. I'm just going to be honest.
Yeah.
Yes.
I will punch Wemby in the face before I punch Lorenzo Neal, and Lorenzo Neal is 5'6". It don't matter how tall anybody is. And so I just think I'm not with that. But back to Ice Cube, Freddie T.
Yeah, no, just getting back to Cube really quick. Whether Caitlin accepts the proposal or not, I think that part of it is more irrelevant than the genius behind Ice Cube even making the proposal. Because at the end of the day, for me, it's about brand identity, brand awareness. If you put Caitlin Clark's name in the same sentence as Big Three, you're still gonna shine a light on Big Three, even if people say, look, Caitlin ain't gonna do that. I mean, she would make $5 million. The max pay in the WNBA is $250,000 a year. So we talking about
I think the highest paid player makes in the fours.
In the fours. So, if you back that out, that's 12 years now or so, something like that, head start, if she were to accept. But I just believe for Ice Cube, it was an amazing play to make because it comes down to putting more conversation and more, engagement on the Big Three itself. Just talking about my league. If you keep my league at the top of conversation, right in line with the America's darling, the hottest thing in women's basketball right now, whether it's WNBA or college, is Caitlin Clark. So if you put those two things together, the Big Three indirectly is gonna get as much conversation as Caitlin Clark. So I believe it was genius even to say, even if they don't pay it, I don't know what their revenues are. I don't know what those former NBA guys are making on an annual basis there. But just even say it and piss off current WNBA players who say, look, where was Ice Cube the last couple of years when all these other superstars or all these other women who are superstars now in the WNBA, why didn't you say it then? Well, maybe it wouldn't have carried or made the same impact by saying it then. But now you're associated with a Caitlin Clark. And this isn't saying, I'm not saying this racially, but a white woman in the Big Three associate that with Ice Cube. They're like, this is more hip hop. This is more urban, the Big Three itself. This isn't necessarily like the structured basketball. This is more like hip hop, like I said. So that doesn't mix, right? That doesn't mix. So again, I believe for Ice Cube, it was genius. It created a conversation. You got other people pissed off, which creates more conversation. And they're gonna tweet, much like they tweeted around our show. So I thought it was amazing, just to mention it.
In the middle of March Madness, one of the best players in the country is gonna be Googled. And now when you Google Caitlin Clark, Big Three is going to pop up on the Google search. Genius marketing.
No, I think it's genius marketing. I also think Caitlin Clark should do it. I think, because here's the thing. No, so here is just Ryan Clark and being a dummy. Caitlin Clark is going to be a star in the WNBA. She's probably going to be the Rookie of the Year and in the running for MVP. She's definitely already driven sales in Indiana, where she's the presumptive number one pick, right? So these are the things that are already happening. There are so many women that play in the WNBA that have to go overseas to play to make more money. If it's about making more money, why not stay here in America, go play in the Big Three, where people could see you, where you still have an opportunity to continue to grow the women's game by watching her play former NBA players, by watching her shoot from the 4-point circle, and also making $5 million, which from a lump sum, unless we're talking about the sponsorships and the partnerships she can get, she's probably never gonna make that, right? So you do that, you still get to play in the WNBA, and it's much like what we saw with Sabrina Ionescu and Steph Curry, right? That wasn't just about a spectacle. It was about saying, no, I can do it in some ways. The things that you compare, oh, they can't dunk, it's not as athletic, it's not this. There are some things that they could do, and then sometimes better. The only person that made more shots or scored more points in the three-point contest than Sabrina Ionescu is the greatest shooter of all time. Dame Lillard shoots it from half court, just chilling.
Yeah.
And he hit 26. She hits 26. Now you add Caitlin Clark to that. Give her an opportunity to do it. Now, and the only sad part to me is there's the Asia Wilsons, who's the best player in the world right now, who's a woman, that may not get some of these opportunities. But the thing I've seen from them is like their unity, right? Their togetherness, other than some of the haters who spoke up against Ice Cube, is way bigger than race, right? Pushing their gender forward, pushing their sports forward is what's most important. And I do think that helps that happen. And so I think it's a great idea for Ice Cube.
Financially, it makes sense. But let's look at it in totality. She goes to the Big Three. She's going to be shooting 4-point shots. She's going to be lighting it up. What about the side where there's an ex-NBA player backing down this little girl in the paint and just dunking?
Yeah.
It's 3-on-3. There's going to be a lure in the first couple games, and then it's going to be there's a little guard from Iowa out here playing with these big old black dudes. I think it'd be cool for a second, 5, 6, 7 games, and then it's a gym. It's a pickup game at a gym.
Yeah, but it's always been a pickup game at a gym. Now it's a pickup game at a gym with the most popular young player in the world, whether man or woman. And I just think that
she has to play defense too.
You're talking about whether or not we win in X's and O's.
I know, I'm just saying, like, the whole
cares.
game, she's gonna shoot the lights out. But there's other parts to the game, and I don't think it's gonna be I don't think it's gonna be visually appealing to watch that.
Nobody cares. That's not the conversation.
I'm just saying.
The conversation is about the branding of it, and the conversation is about for her getting $5 million. I don't care if she got to play. I don't care nothing about the game. I'm not gonna watch it.
He didn't give a damn if the Nets win one game. Because he's the owner. It's about ownership. And I think, again, it goes back to how can we create a buzz around this league? How can we make this league more popular? And again, you even said it, making this comment around March Madness, tied it with Caitlin Clark and the Big Three, I think it's just perfect, regardless of what happens.
Yeah, and listen, I mean, there's no way to really pivot to this. We said that we were going to talk about it. I know, Chan, you mentioned watching, what is it, Quiet on the Set?
Quiet on the Set.
The Nickelodeon documentary.
Yes, and it's crazy you watched it. It's about Daniel Snyder, who was the executive back then, and taking these kids and really the parents kind of giving the kids to stardom and money, and they're doing all these shows, but the dude was toxic. He was having employees give him massages in the open. He was talking crazy to the kids. He was getting in the pool, a lot of sexual innuendo back in the day. And as you're looking at it, I was watching Nickelodeon back then. As you're looking at it, thinking about the things that they were saying and little sexual jokes that were right on the edge that he thought was funny, and he was writing it for them. And these kids were getting emotionally and mentally messed up by this. And some of them now being older, they were coming on and there were psychiatrists coming on. It's a great documentary. You should watch it. And it's just about like the protecting your kids at all costs would be my thing is. And there are crazy people at all levels, but this dude, Dan Schneider, who he came out and apologized a couple years ago, but this dude, Dan Schneider, really messed up a lot of these kids. They were saying that no one wanted to say anything because they think they could be replaced. So if I'm this star on one of these shows and I'm feeling upset, I'm feeling a certain way about this dude or how the toxic work environment is, they're gonna go find somebody that looks just like me and replace me if I was to complain. And I think that's on the parents of any young, talented person at any level. Stars happens with the gymnastics too. With the gym, they give these kids to these gymnastics coaches, and I guarantee there's a million great gymnastics coaches. But then there was a guy from Penn State back in the day. There's a guy in South Florida right now about to get locked up for it. Got to protect your kids, and money should not be involved when you got to protect them children.
Didn't you also mention something about, because you just had theme parks over spring break, right? Mm-hmm. Mentioned about 40-year-old men being in line alone by themselves at Disney.
That was weird to me. Sitting in 2-3 families with kids running around and just a 40-year-old standing there waiting to get on a Velocicoaster. It's like, I'm not cool with that.
You didn't have a spouse that went to get a hot dog or something?
Listen, there was a bunch of them too.
The thing about stardom and fame and the want to, and a lot of times, to see a talent in your child and want to foster that, want to give them an opportunity and a potential to grow into that and have a career and be able to take care of their family, I believe that is a real thing. There's also been a thing where people see their children as pawns or assets in order to help them get out of certain situations that they're in. And I do believe that that could play a part in blinding you to some of the natural awareness we have as parents. It would be hard for me to see truly handing my child over to someone and stepping fully back when I don't want or didn't want my child at a young age to be at a 2-hour practice without me or without Yank, where I wouldn't just hand my children over even in school without making sure I'm scheduling meetings, making sure we understand what's going on, asking them what their days are like, asking them how people are treating them, watching their behaviors when they get in the car to see if anything's off, just so we know. Just completely being not necessarily overprotective, but doing our best to pay attention. Now, having gotten to the point where I have older kids and having to have some difficult conversations with all three, mostly my oldest, and some things that happened with her in college and some things she went through, I realized that you can't really do enough, that they're gonna have to make decisions, that kids are going to be put in places where you have to hope that you've taught them well enough and you've instilled enough in them to where they have the confidence to speak up. And I know it's heartbreaking to me that, at least for her, I didn't do that well enough in some cases. And so I don't want to be necessarily too hard on the parents in that But also too, man, like to think of, and I get it, like we all have our things that like we stand on. Like I am an imperfect human.
Allah.
You know, I don't make every right decision. I don't do things the way you always should. I wouldn't want like necessarily to have a reality show that truly showed my entire life, right? Because I understand that. But to harm a baby, you know, and I don't mean it in the sense of like infant or toddler, but children who trust you, children who understand like there's a need for you, children that believe you have their best interest at heart, who aren't fully developed enough at some points to tell right from wrong, to tell whether what this person is doing to me, what they're introducing me to, is something that should be done to me or I should be introduced at this time, and not having the wherewithal or the confidence through experience and wisdom to know who to go to know who to tell, or wanting something so bad or being pushed to want something so bad that the fear of losing that thing is worth a lifetime of trauma you will never get over, that you don't even understand you're being subjected to. It makes me sad, man, because no amount of money, no amount of success, no amount of therapy is going to be able to erase those memories from those now adults, but from what happened to those young kids, man. And that junk makes me, it makes me sad, because I had parents who did put the right sort of foundation in me to understand those things and never put me in those situations. I probably wasn't talented enough to get shipped off anyway, but I think that's really sad.
Going off to college, that's what you do. I remember Charlie Strong saying, okay, telling my mom, come to Florida, I'll take over now. Charlie was a great dude, father figure to me, still talk to him to this day. I was 18. It's, you know, and I don't know if that's the right age or we've decided that's the right age, because that's, you know, you're a grown person now. You're a grown up. You can do different things at that age. But it's when, it's those child stars, Nickelodeon kids are like 7, 8, 9. You should be around them. You should have somebody there that loves them, because for every great executive, for every great speech coach, for everything the people around these kids, there were a number of people in that organization that weren't good people. And there were a number of people that were good people. It's just, speaking of college, Jerry Sandusky. You're going to play for Penn State University. You're going to play for one of the best defensive coordinators in the history of football.
And the thing is, too, though, these are college-aged young men, bro. So think about these children.
These children. So, like, there are bad people out here at a bunch of different levels of the world, and you have to be the one as a parent to figure that out, or even be around enough or have someone there around enough to protect them at that age. You get older, whatever that age is, and you know your kid. You know when your kid, like you're saying, you know when they understand things, when they're going to speak up, when they can really deal with situations. You know your kid, and it's kid to kid to kid. But you need to be the protector of those children. And like you said, I don't care if it's money involved, fame, whatever you want them to become, or whatever you're trying to manifest for them, you still got to be a parent. You're not a manager. You're still their parent. And when the days end, the start and end of the day, you're their parent first, not a manager.
I just want to say, first, I didn't watch the documentary, so I don't have a ton to really go into details on that. Both of you guys have done, I think, a great job, you know, of expressing your thoughts. I just want to say, I believe pedophiles, they hide in broad daylight. You know, they establish some level of trust with the parents or the adult that have to watch over these kids. Like even online, you know, my son, he's a gamer. He's online a lot, and I have to constantly ask him, you know, who's that you're chatting with on Discord? You know, what's their age? You know, I vet the person that's on the opposite end of the chat. Parents, protect your children at all costs. But more importantly, it's about paying attention to your kid. You know, being in their lives, asking questions every single day. Do not get complacent or comfortable, because it only takes a moment for someone else or a pedophile to just slither in and start inviting and doing things, all these different things to your children. So I guess that's my 2 cents on it.
That's a good segue, though, Freddie T, talking about being a father, being a parent, paying attention to your kids. We are headed into the weekend that more people go to church than any other weekend in the world. Easter Sunday, as the black people in the South call it, Resurrection Sunday. He has risen, you know, and, you know, like people do different things for Easter. Like my mama gonna be in church all weekend. Like I already know. She probably in church right now and she just gonna bring a sleepover bag and take a shower in the back. And, you know, and my daddy's probably somewhere fussing about it because they put him in the head of all these committees and he gotta cook. You know, do you guys have like any memories of Easter or what are you doing with your families this week? I guess to commemorate Resurrection Sunday or just anything that you have a story surrounding it?
I like Easter for being able to do the Easter egg hunt and all of that stuff. Growing up, I didn't have a lot. So I didn't have we couldn't really afford to get all of us suits and nice dresses. So I was kind of embarrassed to go to church. Even when they would say, come as you are, you know, my grandmother would put on those jeans and a button up and go. We didn't have a suit, but I didn't want to go because all my neighbors had suits. So I guess the most excitement I got out of Easter was being able to go and do the egg hunt or even color and boil the eggs, color them and then go and hide them, you know, and find them and all of that. But church wasn't a big staple, you know, for us growing up. Although we know it involved a whole lot of church, we would just get in and get out and then get excited for the Easter egg hunt.
Easter's, it's funny. My pastor David at Church by the Glades in South Florida, it's our church, and we'll be there, you know, this weekend. He calls me a CEO of church. I don't run anything. Christmas, Easter, one other. That's when I go to church. All year, Christmas, Easter, one other. And I walk in, it must be Christmas time, huh, Channing? But I had to go to church as a kid, and we went to church on Easter. To be honest, when I was a kid, church was just nap time. I'm going straight to bed with the dude yelling and screaming. I'm gonna wake up and eat that little cracker and that juice, and I'm gonna go back to sleep. But even through being, I don't know if it's osmosis or whatever it is, I'm very spiritual to this day. And it's not just about the building you're in or the listening to the stories and the I call them lectures, the message, but it's about putting something in your heart that there's something bigger than you. I don't give a damn who you call him, what name you call God, whatever. All the religions out there. I always say, just understand there's something bigger than us and I can fool with you. And that's what I would say, the religious side of it. And yeah, Easter, it was the egg hunt, it was the fun of it and all that, but it was always a day I knew I was gonna go to church. And even those 3 days a year I go to church, I still know that there's something bigger than us out there and there's somebody watching over us.
Yeah, like so the church I go to, they do this whole thing leading up to Easter, and they were just talking about different things recently and just saying how the trade for Barabbas and Jesus Christ is the greatest trade ever. So that means it's much better than the Herschel Walker trade or the Trey Lance trade, Russell Wilson trade, right? It's much bigger than that. The crowd had an opportunity to save one person, and it was Barabbas, who was basically a soulless man, right? An example of what it means to be devil in human form. And then it was Jesus Christ, who truly was the Lord and Savior. And they chose to save Barabbas, and they said crucify Jesus Christ, which was always what he was put here to do. But in talking about that, he was saying what that allowed us to do, right? It allowed us to receive grace, right? Grace is us not getting what our actions say we deserve. It's being able to have heaven when we deserve hell, being able to have good when we deserve bad. But the thing that we're supposed to learn from receiving grace is how to give grace. And that really stuck out to me because, one, I don't really receive it well. And there's a selfishness that's a part of that. Two, that it is because I do certain things or because I am certain things or because I feel certain things that I don't allow myself to do, why do I deserve that sacrifice? Why do I deserve that grace? Why do I deserve the mercy? right? And so I'm hard on myself and critical of myself in some situations and then still do stupid shit, right? Which just repeats that cycle. And then with other people, it's like I'm sometimes, from a standpoint, at least of morality, too gracious. Because I'm so ashamed of who I am at some points, right? And so it's like I can't pass that judgment, or I can't criticize, or let me see and try to work around what these people are doing and try to get to the root of it. Because like at my core, I know who I am. I know what I pray against. I know what I read against. I know what I fight against. I know what I succumb to. And so it was just a good reminder, man, that this time truly isn't about the festivities that surround the resurrection, right? It isn't about that this is the actual day the stone was rolled away from the tomb. It's about what it means for our everyday, what it means for us believing in a higher power and how that's supposed to make us move as humans. And so I think for me, it got me thinking about this question to ask both of you. At the end of every show, well, most shows, we ask people what's their biggest pivot. What we never ask anybody is, going forward, what should be your biggest pivot? If you got an opportunity to make a decision right now that you were going to change something, that you were going to implement something, that you were going to hope that something happened in your life that now pushed you forward in a certain way in 2024, what would that be? Not a resolution, not I'm going to do this, or I'm going to stop eating candy, or I'm going to work out more. What would be something you think you need to shift in your work life, in your home life, that could make a huge impact?
For me, it's discipline. I just got to re-engage and reinforce my commitments. I haven't been great at maintaining my discipline. I find myself not being as motivated as I used to be. And sometimes I'm just at the crib and I'm like, all right, if it's not pivot stuff, I ain't really excited to do a whole lot of other stuff. And that was never always the case. Not that I'm lazy or anything like that. I just don't have the same excitement for things. So I gotta really find a way to kind of re-engage my discipline. Like I used to just be able to tell myself, nope, this is structured. You gotta do boom, boom, boom. And right now I'm kind of let things seep through. So, I've been telling myself I need to get back to where things were more structured and I was a lot more disciplined, and that just gave me a better sense of direction and a better drive.
Honestly, life-wise, probably be more emotionally in tune with people. Like it's something mental, I don't know. Like it's all about a goal. Like we have to have a goal. Like we're reaching something. I never look around and think about the people around me. How is this making me feel? How's that making you feel? How's this? I always talk about, I like people around me to have a good time and be positive and nice. But when things aren't going well, I don't really emotionally attach to people like that. Even with my wife, knowing, really listening to Asia when she's speaking, listening to the kids when they're speaking, where, okay, we have to do this, we're working hard to get that. I'm flying out with the pivot, we're going to do shows, we're doing this, doing that. But to sit down really and ask somebody how they're doing. We spoke about that on the show, but I think that would that's one of the things that I need to work on, is the emotional attachment more than just a goal, trying to accomplish goals or try to make more money and all that. Really listen to people and try to be on that level with them.
Yeah, I think for me, it's pride. And not the sort of pride that comes with, I think, arrogance or confidence or accomplishment or anything like that. I think it's the pride in the few things in life I think I'm good at, or the few things in life I believe are positive aspects of my being, because I hold on to those things so tightly, And my homeboy was telling me a story about this guy that got jumped when he was in the 8th grade. And this guy's in the NFL now. And he was saying well, what'd you do? And the dude was like, nothing, I just got jumped. And he's like, see, that's what's wrong with you. That's why you're soft now. And it brought me back to like being a kid, because I was always like the youngest kid in the grade. And so like if it was kids around my age, like I was always good. Like we could throw hands, whatever. But I was scared of some of the kids in school because they might have been held back. I was obviously a grade ahead. And I was like I would fight them, but I didn't want to lose a fight, you know? And like those experiences shaped me. And then like not being picked shaped me and all these things. And so the ability to fight through adversity, the ability to not be affected by like outside influences, like not being scared, right? Not having certain levels of fear was always things I held on to. Like effort was something I held on to. And so now anytime anything encroaches on that, I immediately defend it. Right? And not defend it as in try to tell people this is why I do it. Defend it as in this you will not take, right? This you will not break. This I will not bend on. And I do believe in some situations it makes people feel that I have a negative feeling toward them by the way I express myself, the bluntness in which I carry it, because I know those things about me so well, I can put it on repeat. As soon as they are approached, I can tell you right now what I feel, how it affects me, and how you will not change it. And it makes me abrasive, right? And I don't want to be abrasive. I don't want people to not want to talk to me. I don't want people to not want to deal with me, but I want them to know this is who I am. And so like that was something like I've been praying on, is like understanding that anything that I have actually isn't because of my experience. It isn't because of what those things made me. It isn't the way because of what I've worked through them. It's because God had that plan for me anyway. I just had to execute it. And focusing on that part of it instead of the me part of it, because that's the thing that makes me so hell-bent on never letting anybody take it. But that's the show.
Man, that
Happy
question was harder than the SATs, man. Goodness gracious.
You was like everybody else. Ooh, that's a tough question. Mother effer, you ain't never watch our show?
Why he asked me that?
That's how we do them.
Good show, fellas.
Hey.
Hold up, limitless. Niggas to me, God pinning it. I fought the head to witness it. Get my people feeling militant. Way I'm feeling, get me up. On the mission, get me up. Knowing me, I got the key. Only vision I can trust.